me tell you a story of my transformation from depression, anxiety, extreme social anxiety, eating disorder, childhood trauma and abuse, neglect, and all of that. And now happy, peaceful, joyful. Starting off from deeply depressed and disturbed was like being in a super deep pit that I may never have gotten out of if I didn't have a vision of happiness in my mind, knowing that I can get there. I just need to do the things. Don't always know what the things are. I know they'll come to me. I have to just stay open and willing to listen to my intuition, to what I believe would be to my benefit, what would serve me. So at some point in my 20s, like I would say mid 20s, maybe even a little before that, I was questioning a lot about my reality, about death. My grandma passed away, and then I just went full into like the spiritual community and attempting to understand like what happens. It raised a lot of questions, as it often does for people when someone passes away in their family. And over the course of this self-investigation, self-discovery, which never really stopped, I kind of became aware of memories and like my own psychology, an understanding of my own psychology. And, to keep you safe, you just kind of put things on a shelf. And I realized that like a lot happened in my childhood that I had just like put on a shelf to be dealt with later because I didn't understand what was going on. One of the major things was the extraterrestrial encounters. Now, a lot of people have encounters and, their memory is either wiped or something happens and they have to revisit it later. And I have corroborated my story with other, we'll call them abductees, but basically you shift dimensions. That's what happens. And so I am a seasoned dimensional shifter because of my childhood experiences doing so. So I have a very different perspective on a lot of things and issues. But it put me in touch with other aspects of my being and my consciousness and my awareness. So I was able to let in other versions of myself into my awareness, which allowed for a transformation to take place, has taken place, is taking place. And generally, to be more of myself, to be a happier version of myself, to be a more integrated version of myself. And it took a lot of, time. There is no real past or future, but it took a lot of time to understand what was going on and how very different I was, my human experience was than a lot of people. But some people also did have the experience of the abduction or dimensional shifting. So I realized like memory is a funny thing, and I don't necessarily have the same memories. I know memories shift. If you know anything about Mandela effect, like people have different memories, and it's basically just different timelines people are remembering. So timelines are shifting based on your current changes that you're making and choices that you're making in your present. So I know that I didn't have the same history I did maybe 2 years ago or 5 years ago or even 5 minutes ago. Everything is that malleable. I can't even tell you definitively what my history is, but I don't even necessarily have a memory. I have a memory of having a memory about the abduction or dimensional shift. But what is the actual past? I don't even really know. Things shift constantly. What I do know is that I'm happy, I'm healthy, and that's saying a lot. That's a currency. I think a lot of people would pay a lot of money to be just physically healthy or happy. But really, no amount of money can really get you there. You have to decide. You have to make those choices literally, maybe on a moment to moment basis, a daily basis, for sure. And I think people are just too afraid, are too accustomed to making the choices that are familiar to them, and they're just not willing. I have put myself into a position where I have given myself no other choice, so that I am willing to make the changes necessary to be the version of myself I would rather be. I would rather be happy. I would rather be healthy. So, yes, extraterrestrials are real. Yes, people can communicate with them. Yes, I've had interactions for sure. Yes, they'll be here before you know it. Open contact is imminent. And I can't even really describe how excited I am that this moment is so rapidly approaching. When so many of us have been in this space of knowing of the existence and the visitations of extraterrestrials to this planet, and now the moment has finally arrived. We're about to be living Star Trek for real. So buckle up, buttercups. This is gonna get good.